So let's take a look at how we could create the geometry for our LCD screen. And I'm turning on my sketches, going to the canvas layer editor, front view, and then this sketch I'm going to hide by making it fully transparent, and my interface sketch I make a little bit opaque. And here, this rectangle with the rounded edges, that is now the shape or geometry I would like to build, because that's going to define where we are going to sync in our LCD display. So how are we going to create that outline? That's actually quite simple. So for a moment I'm going to hide the sketch. And let's go to this view. I'm also turning off the symmetry for a moment. So you see, like, we have the vertical edges, for example, from this fillet, and then the upper edge here. So those edges I would actually like to duplicate. And to duplicate an edge, you can go to Curve Edit, and then if you have the fillet selected, click the left mouse button and hold it until you see this toolbar with the duplicate edge tool. So this one. If you double click it, gives you some options, but I don't really need those right now. So what does the duplicate curve tool do? Basically, because this is the fillet is a rectangular surface, I can select now one edge by clicking here, and then instead of using the rectangle, I'm using the fillet, and release my left mouse button. And you see that this way I told Alias to select this lower edge of that fillet surface and duplicate it. I can do the same, for example, here with the left fillet, and let's rotate and then left click, move the mouse to fillet piece, release the mouse button, and now I have those three curves extracted. That's basically what that tool is doing, and they perfectly match the geometry of my outer shell, because the interface opening I am going to create, I would like to have, of course, the same curvature on the top part, and which should be nice and vertical on the sides. So those three curves, for example, I'm going to copy onto a new layer. I call maybe interface, assign, and the surface one I could for a moment hide. Let's go back to the front view, turn on the sketch, and there you can see now those are the three left, right, and upper curve parts I need. And I would have to move them somewhat into the center part. However, instead of doing this by hand, curve by curve, I would like to offset them by 3 millimeters, so that I have everywhere the same distance. So this curve goes down 3 millimeters, this curve goes to the right 3 millimeters, and this curve goes to the left 3 millimeters. But before I do this, I'm also going to select this curve, because I don't have a curve down here. I'm going to duplicate this curve. And I'm going to edit, duplicate, object. And then I'm selecting the X, Y, and Z space. And here you probably will have like a number 1. And this is basically the scaling. So I'm putting a minus to here, and what that means is along the x-axis the scaling will remain, along the y-axis the scaling will remain, but along the z-axis the scaling will be inverted. So if I zoom out a little bit and maybe rotate the view, I can't with this tool actually on, but I click on Go, and there you see now this curve is down here. It's moved down to there because here is the center point. So -1, move down to 0. Sorry, this is like 1, move down to 0. That would be here, and then the scaling -1 would be from the center point down along the z-axis in negative space. But that's not really a big problem, because with this curve selected and the move tool activated, pressing the right mouse button, I can just then simply move it to where I would like this curve to be. So, like there. Okay, so that is pretty good. Now I can select those curves, and I can go select one curve and then go to Object, Edit, and offset the curve. Or I can actually select all 3 curves at once and then select Offset. Because as you can see, the offset command now works on all 3 curves at the same time. It saves me just 2 redundant steps. I can change the orientation. I would like to offset to the center part. And then with the left mouse button, when I click somewhere and then move my mouse left, right, I can, for example, change the offset value. But now this should be exactly 3 millimeters. Right now I have it at a distance of 3.044 millimeters. If I press 3 on my keyboard and press return, it perfectly positions then those curves at 3 millimeters offset. And then I can click offset, and I have now a curve element created. If I click it, you can see this is now 1 unit that is offset by 3 millimeters.